Hey guys, welcome back to the Dargon Gaming Squad. Today I'm going to be reviewing Dogs in the Vineyard, and this will be the first in our new series, Reviews and Stuff. So stay tuned. Today I want to talk about a game that I recently picked up, Dogs in the Vineyard. So I have been hearing about this game for a couple years now. When I first started getting really into exploring role-playing games, after having played D&D 2nd edition for several months, I stumbled upon a podcast by the name of 2GM's One Mic, and it is a podcast that I've really enjoyed. They talked about this game a lot. This particular podcast talks about other systems on a really regular basis, and I mean, it's a main part of their show is that they actually even they have favorite games of the week, and they always talk about at least 3 games. They're not always games that they've never played before. Sometimes they're modules or new versions of games that they've played or supplements for games. But regardless, they always cover every week, every episode. They cover at least 3, well, usually 3 games, and it's really interesting. And then a lot of times just in their main topic of conversation, other games will come into play depending on what they're talking about. This particular group of people that run this, actually it's 2 guys at this point in time. When I first started listening, it was a guy and a gal, but they all play together. And so they have a lot of stories, and this game, Dogs in the Vineyard, came up multiple times. They talk about it a lot. It's definitely on their list of favorites. And they never have anything bad to say about it, and they talk about how much they enjoy it. So that spoke really highly of it. So here just maybe a month ago, but I started listening to another podcast, the One Shot podcast. So if you're interested in listening to live games of other systems and a variety of systems, I highly recommend this podcast because they definitely do that. They do a whole lot of different systems, and some of them there's a lot on the playlist that I have never heard of, have no idea what they are. And so anyway, I was scrolling through their list and I noticed that they had played this game. It was really interesting, and I found myself very caught up in the story. It's very narrative or role play heavy. So I thought that was really interesting, and that was the final straw. I went ahead and I bought it. And I think for a while that this game was out of print because the folks on 2GM's One Mic kept talking about, oh, they were sad that they couldn't get it, that it wasn't out there anymore, that people were not going to get to enjoy this game. But it is on Drive-Thru RPG. I don't know how long that's been the case. There's a couple other sources for it too. I will dig out the different links where you can find it, and I'll post them in the description. I will also be sure to post the links for 2GM's One Mic and the One Shot podcast for you. So I went ahead and bought it. I did get it in PDF format. You are supposed to be able to get it in print, but I had a hard time finding it when I found the site that was supposed to have it. They had it listed, but they didn't have a buy button. You couldn't actually buy it. And when I asked about it, basically I was just told by the creator that he'd had a lot of sickness in his family. I think maybe they're either printing on demand or maybe they print it in small batches. He didn't really explain, but he sent me to somewhere else and they didn't have it either. So I finally decided, well, I've already purchased the PDF. I just went ahead and sent it to a local printer that I know and had them print it up and bind it. So it is it's a smaller sized booklet. So just to give you an idea, here is my 2nd edition handbook, and here is Dogs in the Vineyard. Anyway, I had it printed up. It was not expensive to have it printed at all, and I think overall it was worth it just to do it that way. I would have spent a lot more to turn around and get the printed edition and overall it cost about the same as it would have if I would have just bought the printed edition in the first place. So I want to read this little bit about what this game is about right out of the book for you. So Dogs in the Vineyard is about dogs, watchdogs, young men and women called to preserve the faith in a hostile frontier territory. They travel from town to isolated town, carrying mail, news, and doctrine, healing the sick, supporting the weary, and pronouncing judgment upon the wicked. One early playtester said what she loves about the game: a town welcomes you with celebration and honor, but what you're there to do is stir up its dirt and lay bare its sins. The setting is fantasy-inspired pre-statehood Utah, the desert territory. Deseret territory is actually what it says, toward the middle of the 19th century. So, it's a harsh landscape, high mountains, icy rivers, forest, falling away westward into scrublands, deserts, buttes, and swells. The winters are long and killing, it says, and these are religious pioneers that have fled persecution on the East Coast, and they're trying to establish a society based on their faith and righteousness out in the frontier. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. So as God's watchdogs, it's your job to hold the faith together. You're there to remind people that the faith is there for them and that the larger body of the church hasn't forgotten them. And so you go around from town to town. So why am I interested in this game? Well, for one thing, I am really drawn to well, I guess the first thing is because I have heard nothing but good about this game. I've never heard anybody say anything negative about it. I'm sure there are people who it just doesn't suit their style or whatever, but I haven't really heard anything negative. So that's a plus right off the bat. And then I really am intrigued by dice pool systems. I really like to roll a lot of dice, and that's just a thing that I enjoy. It's part of my interest in this hobby, I guess, is I just have fun playing with dice. It's pretty cool. So this is definitely a dice pool system game. It's a fairly simple system, and it's got a pretty uncomplicated setting. I mean, you're just playing humans. You don't have to, pick a complicated, you don't have to pick class or complicated backgrounds or figure out what race you're going to play. There's just none of that. So it's really simple and straightforward, and as such, it also happens to be very episodic. So with all these other things that go into play, it's actually designed that you can sit right down with a group, create your characters, finish your character setup scenarios, and just get right to playing. Most of the time it's going to be one town per session. Occasionally you might need to have 2 sessions depending on how complicated the situation is. So that's just really straightforward. On the DM side of things, or the GM side of things, storyteller, whatever, all the GM really has to do is set up the town, and that doesn't even mean a map or a diagram or floor plans. All they really need is some NPCs and an idea of where the trouble is in this town. What are the sins and where have they led, and whether there's exorcisms that need to be done, or what is actually going to be the problem. And the system's set up pretty easily for all of that to take place as well. So the book is really, really well organized. It's, like I say, a pretty simple system. There's not a lot to it, and the way the whole dice pool system works is very unique. The type of conflict you're in determines which stats you get to use, and you pull in however many dice that is. You even start with a dice pool to create your character. So you have your different stats. There's quite a few different. There's stats and traits and skills and relationships. So you have 4 different things that all have dice that would apply to them. And so you may have you have so many, you know, D6s and D8s, you know, for certain things, and you just assign them, and it's the quantity of the dice is important. You don't roll them for a number that is applied to that stat. You determine, oh, this is going to be 4d6 and this is going to be 1d4. And when those come into play, you pull however many quantity that is. So, you know, and then you actually determine which traits apply, which skills apply, and your GM helps you with that in that process. But then there's also an escalation procedure for this game as well. You may start out with just a social conflict, and it may turn into a fist fight, and so then you get to add more dice. Meanwhile, your GM either doesn't get to or has very limited ability to add. So it's all, you know, role played, and then the dice are used in a way that's very similar to your wagering in poker. And so it's a really interesting system. It has fallout that you use that kind of helps you grow your character and affect your character in permanent ways, and building relationships and things like that. So it's pretty cool. It's a really neat system. So without delving into every little thing and explaining exactly how to play the game, that's just my brief overview. The book is really well organized. It goes through everything that you could possibly need to know, from, you know, even just how role-playing in general works, how to set up the game, how to create a character, how to set up your NPCs, how conflict resolution works, and how to build a town, which is more about figuring out, again, it's more about figuring out where the problems are that the dogs are going to solve. And what's really cool is the DM never decides what's going to happen. They set up the scenario for you, and it all just plays itself out. And so, you know, the DM doesn't have to say, oh, then this is going to happen, you're going to go here. Or, you know, they're going to fight this and this is what they're going to get. It's all just, you know, very fluid and very organic and very simple. So I'm definitely interested in this game. Please let us know in the comments if you have played this, if you have run this, if you have any tips for us. If you are interested in running it, and I know I would be interested in playing. I'm definitely more interested in playing than in running. So, and it looks like if I want it to happen in our group, like, I'm probably going to have to run it, and I'd much rather play. So I would love an opportunity to jump in and give it a try, especially if I'm going to have to run it, just to see how it all goes and get a little more familiar with it. But also, if there's other systems out there that you think we should check out, please do share that with us in the comments. As always, don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed the video. Do share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe so that you can catch every single video. And until next time, get out there and get gaming. Bye.